You ever walk into a room thinking you're about to be celebrated and walk out wondering if you were ever seen at all? That's exactly what happened to me at 10:52 a.m. on a gray Thursday morning in conference room 3A. The invite said, Quarterly, Performance and Compensation Review. I'd read it 3 times, even wore the dark green blazer I saved for wins worth remembering. Craig was already sitting there when I walked in, legal pad open, shoulders tense, eyes down, no smile, no welcome. The blinds were half shut, and the air felt like it had lost all warmth. Something was wrong. We're restructuring the leadership team, he began, voice clipped, rethinking some strategic alignments. I didn't speak. I've been around long enough, 22 years in this company, to know that kind of language is just camouflage. Monica, he said, starting Monday, you'll report to Jacob. He'll be heading client operations. Jacob, the same 28-year-old who once sent a quarterly financial summary to a competitor by mistake. The guy who asked me, last week, how to build a client-facing pitch deck. That Jacob? And the Brookstone contract? I asked, carefully. The $14 million deal I just landed after 4 months of negotiation. Craig looked down, clicking his pen. That's being folded into the new structure. Folded, like laundry, like it was nothing. No mention that I'd saved the firm's quarter, no bonus, no handshake, just realignment, integration, corporate nonsense. I sat still, like if I moved too fast, something inside me might crack. Hi, I'm Monica Green. 2 weeks ago, I was Director of Client Strategy at Halverson Partners in Minneapolis. Today, I learned I've been quietly written out, not because I underperformed, but because I outshone someone who needed to feel taller. Before I go on, have you ever been blindsided like that? Walked into a meeting thinking you'd be celebrated and walked out invisible? If that's ever happened to you, I want to hear your story. Leave a comment. Subscribe for what comes next, because for me, this wasn't an ending. It was just the start. I want to hear your story too. If you've ever had your loyalty ignored or your value erased, hit like, subscribe, leave a comment below, because the moment that door closed behind me, I knew something had changed. Not just in the company, in me. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something they never saw coming. I didn't cry. Not in that stiff back chair across from Craig. Not in the elevator with its mirrored walls and stale silence. Not even in the parking lot, beneath a wide gray sky that felt like it was holding its breath. What I felt wasn't sadness. Not right away. It was numbness. Like my name had been scrubbed from my own identity. I sat in my car, still parked under the same maple tree I'd always aimed for when arriving early. The dashboard clock read 11:17 a.m. But in my mind, I was still stuck in conference room 3A, still hearing restructure and realignment like they were weapons, not strategies. My hand hovered over my phone. But who do you call when you can't even explain what you lost? When what they took wasn't just a job, but your place in the story? 6 years. That's what I gave them. 6 years of 70-hour weeks, emergency flights and client dinners that bled into midnight calls. Birthdays skipped, anniversaries postponed. I built trust where there was none. When I joined Halverson Partners, our presence in healthcare tech was non-existent. Now, it made up nearly 40% of our quarterly revenue. And Craig? He knew that. He didn't just know, he promised me. If you land Brookstone, I'll put your name in for VP. Full board vote, he said. 2 months ago. It wasn't casual. It was a deal. I delivered. He deleted me. I opened my inbox and searched. Annual Leadership Summit. The invite usually landed in March. Nothing. I checked archive threads. Still nothing. Then I opened the HR folder. Executive voting sheet. Final. I scrolled slowly, my heart pounding, and there it was. Monica Green. Removed from consideration. Reason. Strategic realignment. No mention of the Brookstone deal. No thank you. No trace. Just gone. No mention of the Brookstone deal. No explanation. Just gone. A few rows down, another name caught my eye. If you believe this was just the beginning and you're ready to see what comes next, hit that subscribe button and join me for the next chapter in a journey that's only just getting started. Jacob Reinhardt, submitted for VP consideration. I felt the sting rise in my throat like bile. Jacob, the same guy who asked me how to format a client memo last quarter, the one who once CC'd a competitor on internal pricing notes. Now he was being considered for promotion. That's when it hit me. They never planned to reward me. They just needed me to land the deal. And once I did, I became inconvenient. I closed my laptop slowly, feeling my chest tighten. 6 years. 6 years of results, loyalty, long nights, and hard decisions, erased with a quiet edit in a shared Google sheet. No thank you. No warning. No farewell. Just digital erasure. It wasn't panic I felt, or even anger. What settled in was something colder. Clarity. That's what I remember most about that Friday evening. The quiet inside me. Not rage, not despair, just stillness. Like driving through a fog and watching the road suddenly come into focus. 3 weeks before they reassigned me, the Brookstone deal nearly fell apart. We were in final negotiations. Contracts bounced back and forth for weeks. Everyone was exhausted. Then, at 3:14 p.m. on a Friday, Brookstone's CFO, Elena Vargas, sent an urgent message. We need signed documents by Sunday night or we reopen bids Monday morning. I forwarded the email to Craig. No response. At 7:40 p.m., I called his cell. Straight to voicemail. Next, I tried Krista in legal. She answered, groggy. Can it wait until Monday? She asked. No, I said. We'll lose them. I'm out of state with my kids, she replied. If you've got clean red lines, send them. I'll try Sunday night. That was it. The biggest healthcare tech contract Halverson Partners had seen in 5 years, left to me alone on a weekend. I stared at the unsigned $14 million agreement, the result of 4 months of strategy, rewrites, negotiation, my work. And that's when I opened a different folder, one I hadn't touched in over 6 months, one labeled MG Solutions, LLC, Legal Docs. MG Solutions, Legal Documents. That folder had started as a contingency plan, created quietly after the last round of executive reshuffling. I never expected to need it, but now, it was the only name I trusted enough to carry this deal across the finish line. I opened the Brookstone contract, made a single change, service provider, from Halverson Partners to MG Solutions, LLC. Everything else? Left untouched. Terms, delivery, payment milestones, all the work I'd spent 4 months refining. Before I sent it, I paused. Searched my inbox for an email Craig had sent 6 weeks earlier. Subject line, Authority to Execute, Brookstone. In it, he'd written, use your best judgment if things are time-sensitive. You have full discretion. That was all I needed? More than enough. I signed the contract, attached the supporting documents, and just before hitting send, I looked at the framed photo on my bookshelf. Me and my team at last year's Q1 kickoff. Back when I still believed loyalty earned protection. 8:04 p.m., I hit send. Then I sat there, completely still. Not victorious, not angry, just quiet. I hadn't done it to be vengeful. I did it to keep the deal alive, to protect the work, the firm, even the people who no longer respected me. What they didn't realize, yet, was that I had just become the sole legal owner of the biggest deal in Halverson Partners' pipeline. Not out of ego, but because I was the only one who showed up when it counted. The next morning, 7:41 a.m., my inbox pinged from Craig Decker to Monica Green. Subject, Brookstone, next steps. Please finalize onboarding documents and coordinate handoff to Jacob by Thursday. No greeting, no signature, no acknowledgement that the $14 million contract even existed, because I dragged it, bloodied and exhausted, through every legal revision and client doubt. Just another task. Like I was still a background note in someone else's song. I read it twice, then closed my laptop. Not yet, not this time. Instead, I walked into the kitchen and made a pot of coffee. Slowly. Every motion felt deliberate, like a quiet form of rebellion. I poured the cream, 2 fingers, just how I like it, and stirred without a sound. No rush, no urgency. Then I walked back to my desk as if I wasn't sitting on a live grenade disguised as a corporate email. 10 minutes passed, then 15. I didn't respond to Craig's message. Something inside me told me to wait. It was a strange stillness, charged like static, like standing in a locked room while knowing the key is in your pocket, but choosing not to use it just yet. At 8:12 a.m., my personal inbox chimed. Subject: quick confirmation, payment routing. From Elena Vargas, Brookstone Healthcare, to Monica Green. Hi, Monica. Just confirming we're sending the initial wire to MG Solutions as signed. Let us know if any adjustments are needed. I stared at the screen. Not Halverson Partners, MG Solutions, my company. My breath caught, but my hand stayed steady. This wasn't just paperwork. It was validation. I hadn't slipped the contract past them. I'd earned it. Elena hadn't questioned it. She expected it. She trusted me. And in that instant, I understood something that made the whole room feel different. I wasn't just the person who secured the deal. I was the deal. I hit reply, typed 3 words, confirmed as signed. Then I paused. Did I send it? Number: not yet. Instead, I opened a new email window. Subject line: Resignation. To Craig Decker. Craig, effective immediately. I will be stepping away from my role at Halverson Partners. I didn't hit send. I just stared at the blinking cursor, then I saved it as a draft. Because if there's one thing I've learned in this business, it's that timing is everything. They thought I was just a tool to land a deal. But Elena knew the truth. And now, so did I. I never answered Craig's email that day. I didn't have to. His request landed in a world that no longer belonged to him. At 6:12 p.m., the wire cleared. $4 million, wired directly to MG Solutions' business account. No alert, no ping, no fanfare. Just a silent new row of digits glowing on a white background. Clean, clinical. I stared at the screen for a full minute. Then another. My coffee had gone cold next to me, but I didn't touch it. I didn't need it anymore. You'd think that moment, the one where your name becomes the name on the check, would feel like triumph. But it didn't. It felt like silence. I was still sitting at my desk in the dark, lit only by the dull blue wash of my laptop screen. The blinds were half closed, the room painted in shadows. Outside, Minneapolis was settling in for the night. Office lights flickered off one by one. Headlights passed by slower. Brake lights glowed a little longer. The city winding down, tired and quiet. I hadn't turned on any lamps. I didn't want to. I was now wealthier than I had ever been. And somehow, I felt emptier than I'd ever known. There was no team celebration, no champagne toast, no one calling to say, "Well done, Monica." Just me, alone in a space that had once been filled with purpose. Too still, too quiet. 6 years at Halverson, 6 years of mentoring new hires, navigating red-eye flights, and covering for missed deadlines that weren't mine. Of skipped birthdays, delayed anniversaries, and dinners cut short by client fires. 6 years of building something that didn't even have my name on it. And now, I was the only one who knew I'd won. I leaned back, head against the chair, eyes fixed on the ceiling. My chest felt tight, like a weight had settled inside and refused to budge. I hadn't cried in months, maybe years, but the tears came now. Not loud, not theatrical, just quiet, steady, the kind that only arrive after holding everything back for far too long. Then the phone rang. Elena Vargas, Brookstone Healthcare. I hesitated, wiped my face, answered. "Monica," she said, voice soft. "I just wanted to say, congratulations. We're excited to move forward, with you." Elena's voice was warm but precise. Then she added something I'll never forget. "We signed with you, Monica. Not your firm. That was always the difference." I couldn't speak right away. I just nodded into the receiver, knowing she couldn't see me. That one sentence, that quiet recognition, it meant more than any bonus, any plaque, any meaningless title ever could. After we hung up, I reopened the draft email I'd been holding on to since the day before. Subject: Resignation. To Craig Decker. This time, I didn't pause. I didn't hesitate. I clicked send. And for the first time in weeks, I exhaled. It started with a message I wasn't supposed to see. Nicole from finance had accidentally copied me into a Slack thread at 1:13 p.m. Craig, just flagging. Brookstone's payment hasn't hit our account yet. Want me to follow up with their AP team? I didn't reply. I just stared at it, already knowing why it hadn't arrived. At 1:45 p.m., Elena replied directly to Craig, already wired, sent to MG Solutions, per the signed contract. Just like that, I could practically feel the panic slide across Craig's face. See, for 6 years, Craig never double-checked me. He delegated and disappeared. When things went right, he took the credit. When they went wrong, I got the blame. This time, though, he gave me full authority, in writing, and walked away. I waited. At 2:20 p.m., the emergency meeting began. Craig, HR Legal, Finance, all gathered in a glass-walled conference room I used to lead strategy sessions in. Meanwhile, I sat in my home office, calm. I could imagine the glances, the rising confusion, the quiet scramble. What exactly did Monica do? I pictured Krista from legal pulling up that email Craig had sent. Use your best judgment. You have full execution rights. His words, not mine. I didn't need to be in that room to feel the temperature rise. Then, at 2:20 p.m., my inbox chimed again. From Angela Reynolds, HR subject, transition process. Hi, Monica. As part of our offboarding, please return all company files, client agreements, and proprietary documents from your time with Halverson Partners. No subject line, no warmth, just cold legal phrasing from Angela in HR. I let it sit for 10 minutes. Then I typed slowly, deliberately. Hi, Angela. Thank you for the note. For clarity, all contracts and materials in my possession are legally held by MG Solutions, LLC, under executive authority granted by Halverson Partners leadership. Nothing I currently hold belongs to the company. Best, Monica Green. I read it 3 times before hitting send. Not a single extra word, just truth. 2:38 p.m. I clicked send. That same minute, my attorney followed up with a formal cease and desist, addressed directly to Craig Decker. It was short, brutal, and perfectly calm. I had asked her to keep it emotionless. Just the facts. The email included phrases like ongoing harassment, unauthorized claims, legal recourse pending further contact. I didn't want to sue. I just wanted the noise to stop. But the irony wasn't lost on me. Craig had handed me full execution authority. Now he was scrambling to undo it. The man who once sat confidently at the top of the org chart was now just another executive being forced to read legalese he never expected to face. I stood by the window, watching the Minneapolis skyline grow dim. The office buildings flickered to life as evening crept in. I wasn't angry. I wasn't smug. I just felt finished. They had started this fight, but I had already written the ending. The board meeting was set for Thursday at 9 a.m. I wasn't there, of course, but I knew the rhythm, the structure. I'd built those decks, run those sessions, written those talking points. And I knew Craig. He would try to explain away the missing revenue, downplay it, distract. But the Brookstone deal's absence from the forecast, that was a hole no graph could cover. At 9:43 a.m., I got my first signal that things had gone sideways. A text from a former colleague. Craig's sweating bullets. Owen from the business intelligence team texted me 4 words. Craig is sweating bullets. I stared at the message for a moment, then set the phone down without replying. I could picture it perfectly. Conference room A on the 14th floor. Long walnut table, 12 leather chairs, dual wall screens flashing dashboards and quarterly targets. I had stood at that head spot a dozen times, walking the board through forecasts, projections, growth narratives. I'd watched Craig shine under pressure. Always crisp, always calculated. But this time, the numbers didn't back him. Later, I'd hear from 2 different sources what really shifted the room. The question came from Elaine Merrick, the board's most seasoned member. Where is the Brookstone revenue? Craig stumbled. Something vague about onboarding delays and documentation holdups. Elaine pressed harder. We were told this contract was finalized weeks ago. Then the chair of the audit committee chimed in. There's no signed contract in legal's records, no document on file. The client name isn't even in our receivables. Silence. Someone finally asked the question, who finalized it? And that's when Craig said it. Just 4 words. My former strategist, Monica Green. He didn't explain how I was no longer with the company, didn't mention that I had formed my own firm, didn't admit that he had given me full authority in writing. He just let my name float there like fog. And I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel smug. I felt separate, like I was no longer even part of their story. That afternoon, at 1:06 p.m., I got an email from Elaine Merrick's assistant. Ms. Merrick would like to schedule a private discussion regarding recent events. Are you available for a call this week? I thought for a moment, then replied, thank you. I appreciate the outreach. At this time, I prefer not to engage directly. I've attached a full report outlining the Brookstone contract status, timeline, legal authority, and client correspondence. A quiet refusal. But in that report, I made one thing unmistakably clear. I signed the deal. The funds were wired to MG Solutions. The loyalty belonged to me, not Halverson, not Craig, me. I never heard from Elaine again, but I did hear from Owen later that week. He didn't say a word after your reply, Owen texted. Just sat there, red-faced. Someone else had to finish the meeting. I pictured Craig in that room, the same room he used to own with his polished voice and laminated buzzwords. Now silent, small. All I could think was, you should have signed your own deals. In our world, rumors travel faster than press releases. All it takes is one missing wire transfer, one contract that doesn't show up where it's expected. And suddenly, people start asking questions. First quietly, then publicly, then with purpose. By the following Tuesday at 9:17 a.m., I received a message from a name I hadn't seen in nearly a year. Subject, coffee, from Lindsay Meager. She was a former client from Stratapath, one who used to CC me on every decision, until Craig insisted she go through proper channels. I replied right away, name the place and time. We met that same afternoon at a quiet cafe in the North Loop. I got there early, found a table near the window, and watched as Lindsay spotted me through the glass. She walked in fast, eyes wide with curiosity. Monica, she said, nearly out of breath. So, it's true. I didn't ask what she meant. I just smiled. I'm guessing you've heard about MG Solutions? I offered. She laughed not unkindly. Heard? It's all over the advisory forums. No one saw it coming. She leaned in, serious now. Was it revenge? I shook my head. It was timing. We didn't talk contracts, not directly, but she made one thing clear. If I opened the door, she'd walk through it. By 5:40 p.m., she sent over a formal inquiry. 2 days later, we signed a 3-month retainer. And that was just the beginning. The next week, I got a call from Marcus Zhao, former data lead at Halverson. I'd mentored him back when he still second-guessed every formula. I've got options, he said, but I'd rather build with you. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself say yes. Without fanfare, without ego, just a steady hand reaching for another. We met that same evening. Marcus arrived with a folder in hand, 2 non-compete agreements already reviewed, and a list of infrastructure requirements he'd drafted himself. It wasn't glossy. It wasn't pitch deck polished. It was real. By 7 p.m., we shook hands in my living room. By Monday, he was fully onboarded. By Thursday, both of his client accounts had officially signed with MG Solutions. There was no champagne, no press release, no viral LinkedIn post announcing a new beginning. But something had shifted. I felt it in the calls that started coming in, from people who used to make me chase them. I heard it in Elena's tone when she called to confirm timelines for Brookstone. She didn't talk to me like a vendor anymore. She talked to me like a peer. And I saw it clearest on the day I signed the lease for our new office. It was a quiet Wednesday, 2:15 p.m. The property manager, a soft-spoken man named Leonard, handed me a thick folder of contracts. I signed each page with calm certainty. We walked through the space. Tall ceilings, wide windows, Warm oak floors catching the afternoon light. At the front door, Leonard turned and said, "We can have your name on the glass by the end of the week." I paused. "Not Halverson," I said. "Not a project code, not a title under someone else's name." I smiled softly. M.G. Green. Black lettering. Centered. He nodded. "Done." After he left, I stood by the front door a little longer, palms on the glass, watching sunlight stretch across the room. For the first time in years, I wasn't chasing recognition. I wasn't proving anything. I was just present. And quietly, completely proud. Then, at 1:34 p.m., a new message landed in my inbox. Subject: meeting from Craig Decker. I stared at it for a full minute. "Monica," it read, "would appreciate the chance to talk directly. Let me know if you're available today or tomorrow. In person preferred." No explanation, no apology. Just clipped sentences from a man who had clearly spent the last 2 weeks unraveling behind closed doors. I didn't reply right away. I needed to think. So I put on my coat and went for a walk. The Minneapolis sky was a soft, dull gray. The kind of color that makes the city feel quiet. The air had that crisp bite. Early spring clinging to the edges of winter. It woke me up with every step. I passed the buildings I used to rush into, the corners where I'd rehearsed conversations, the revolving doors that spun with boardroom pressure. But now, those blocks didn't feel like battlegrounds. They just felt open. By 3:15 p.m., I replied. "Let's meet at 4:30 p.m., corner conference room, East Point offices. 1 hour, short, director, mine." I arrived first and set the room. A pitcher of water, 2 glasses, blinds drawn at the perfect angle, 1 chair at the head of the table, 1 across from it. At exactly 4:29 p.m., Craig walked in. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not in stature, but in presence. The man who once filled every meeting with overconfidence now carried something else. Hesitation. "Monica," he said with a tight nod, "thanks for taking the time." I nodded back. No smile. "Sit." He did. There was a pause. He glanced at the water, but didn't touch it. "I'll get to it," he said, clearing his throat. "This hasn't been the smoothest transition. Tensions have been high, but I think we both know there's still value in collaboration." I let him finish. It sounded rehearsed, talking points strung together without conviction. "I'm proposing we work together. You'd keep MG Solutions. We'd co-lead the Brookstone account under a joint structure." Without saying a word, I reached into my folder and pulled out a document. A signed retainer agreement, dated 2 days earlier, 3-year term, $30 million. Sole provider, MG Solutions. I slid it across the table. Craig blinked, swallowed. "So, it's official?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "It's been official. This meeting is a courtesy, Craig." He looked like he might offer an apology, or a rationalization. But I didn't give him the space. "You didn't choose me when it mattered. Now, I get to choose not to choose you." There it was, the weight I'd carried for years, finally spoken aloud. That ache to be seen, to be chosen, to be validated by someone who'd always treated me like a tool, not a person. Gone. Not with fireworks, not with tears. Just gone. Craig nodded slowly. "I misread things." "You did more than misread," I said. "You underestimated." There was a long pause, and then he stood. "Congratulations, Monica." Maybe he meant it, maybe he didn't, but it didn't matter. I waited until he'd left the room before I let myself take a deep breath. My chest expanded in a way it hadn't in years. The silence no longer felt empty. It felt earned. Outside, the sunlight had dipped low, casting gold across the window glass. 4:46 p.m., I stood alone. Not triumphant. Not above anyone. Just free. The new nameplate was installed the next morning at exactly 9 a.m., black lettering. Frosted glass. Centered, just as I'd asked. MG Green Strategy Group. I stood outside the front door for a long moment, just looking at it. Not rushing to unlock it. Not taking a photo for LinkedIn. Just breathing. It had taken me 6 years to climb someone else's ladder, and exactly 3 months to walk away from it. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air still smelled like fresh paint and cedar. Sunlight stretched across the hardwood floor like an invitation. Inside, the rhythm of a Monday morning had already begun. Marcus was down the hall reviewing projections with the OPS team. Lindsay had just arrived, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. We'd signed 2 new accounts the previous week. Elena from Brookstone had introduced me to a private equity firm in Chicago. Word was getting out, but there was no frenzy, no vanity metrics, no posturing, just quiet momentum. The kind that doesn't need to announce itself. It simply builds, just steady, quiet momentum. Exactly the culture I had once tried to nurture under someone else's name, now fully alive under mine. Finally free to move at its own pace. At 10:07 a.m., I sat at my desk. Not Craig's desk, not some borrowed space near the glass wall. My desk. I opened my calendar. A new meeting request had come through. Subject, Strategic Acquisition Inquiry. From Andrew Koenig, Managing Partner Firm, Templar Holdings. Requested, this week. Flexible schedule. The message was brief and polished. We've been following the growth of MG Green Strategy Group with interest. We'd love to explore a potential acquisition. Fully funded. Global rollout potential. Would you be open to a conversation? I read it once. Then again. Templar Holdings was no small player. 6 months ago, I might have printed that email and taped it to my refrigerator. But today, I typed my reply carefully. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate the outreach. I'm not looking to sell at this time. We're just getting started. Then I hit send and sat back, letting a calm, grounded satisfaction settle deep in my chest. It wasn't just that I had said no to power. It was that I no longer needed permission to say yes to myself. I looked around the office again. Sunlight on the floor, quiet hums of conversation down the hall. The people who had chosen to build this with me. Not for status, not for job security, but for belief. They used to say I was too bold, too fast, too much. Now, they call me boss. And here's what no one tells you. Freedom doesn't always come from rebellion. Sometimes it comes from refusal. Refusal to shrink. Refusal to stay where you're merely tolerated. Refusal to fit inside a frame designed by someone afraid of your growth. They demoted me because they thought I was small. But I wasn't made to fit their version of success. I was made to build my own. If you've ever been told to wait your turn, to tone it down, to know your place, this is your reminder. If you've ever been told to wait your turn, to be quiet, or to make yourself smaller just to fit someone else's version of success, then I'd love to hear your story. Leave a comment below. Let's make space for each other. For every voice that's been silenced in boardrooms or passed over in promotions. I didn't build this path alone, and I'm not walking it alone now. If you felt something in this story, support this channel, support this message, and support the people who are finally stepping into the light after years of being kept in the background. And here's the advice I'd give anyone who's standing where I once stood. Don't wait for the perfect moment or for someone to validate your worth. Most of the time, that moment never comes. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is quietly choose yourself. Walk away from what no longer values you. Even if it once did, you are allowed to rewrite your story, even in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, especially then. Because by that point, you're not guessing anymore. You know what you're capable of. So own it, boldly, calmly, without apology.